Lanre Buluro is a member of the team at Chapel Hill. Denham is the director in charge of sales. So he's talking to us about infrastructure, debt market. Let's bring him on. He's live to us from our studios downtown at the Nigerian Stock Exchange. Lanre, it's good to see you again, in particular in the new year.
Good morning, Boston, and Happy New Year. Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's get straight to business. When we talk about infrastructure debt market, how big is this market in Nigeria, and what do we have currently for investors to put their money into?
Well, size-wise, I mean, it's a bit. Well, the opportunity is huge. I'm sure you've seen or you heard about the data around the need about $30 billion every year, just for us to catch up. In regards to the asset class itself, it's just ourselves, the Nigerian Infrastructure Debt Fund, and there's also been some infra bonds, well, a particular one that came out last year also. So it's an emerging opportunity in Nigeria right now.
Yes, it's an emerging. We need infrastructure, and the federal government is spending so much. So the private sector, the government can use some help from the private sector, as it were. So if you try to benchmark other investments in government assets and equities, whatever, and you look at the NIDF, for example, which is Chapel Hill's bond, talk us through the performance.
Performance has been quite stellar since we started. I mean, so this year alone, total returns has been around 22%. One of the unique features of the fund is the fact that we distribute some form of income every quarter, and we've done about 6-7 consecutively since we started. This year alone, aggregated to about 16 naira 50 kobo, with an annualized cash yield in excess of 17%.
So if you look at debt market infrastructure, financing, what are we? Yes, we know the size of what we need to do, but again, if you try to look at other issues that are coming within this investment, inflation, interest rate, exchange rate, and if you put all of that together, you say this has been a very good performance?
Oh, yes. In regards to what's available in the market, I think it's probably the highest yielding instrument in the market. There might have been 1 or 2 euro bonds that the yields went up really high, but in regards to this 2018, the NIDF is definitely one of the top performing asset classes.
Okay, if you look at and try to put up this a chart there on the screen, which talks to infrastructure and investment performance, and it says this infrastructure has demonstrated very strong performance over other asset classes. We need more infrastructure funding in Nigeria. Do you think, how much more do you think we should do, whether to toll some bridges or whatever?
Well, I mean, the government has to play a major part in that also, at least in the form of creating an enabling environment and also crowding in other form of investors. So either as the pension funds, DFIs, or private investors in general. So what we're doing at NIDF is pretty much bridging that gap. We started last year at 5 billion. Currently, we're at 20 billion. We're currently in the market now looking to raise another 15-16 billion, and our plan is to come to the market 3 to 4 times every year. We also hope other asset managers will create similar products to help bridge this gap that we have in our infrastructure.
So what is the handshake here between the private sector and the government when it comes to infrastructure funding, debt funding, not just using Eurobond, as it were, but to use maybe some local instruments in the marketplace for these critical services that we need to put in place?
Like I said earlier, right, one is creating an enabling environment. You talked around the government's budget and spending a lot. I'll actually clarify that. I won't say they're spending a lot. I mean, look at the half-year performance of the 2018 budget. Not a single naira was deployed into CapEx. Now, it had to do with the long delay of the budget being put out. But all the borrowings the government, I mean, the logic, use of the borrowings the government is doing is to at least apply 100% of that into infrastructure. Once again, the government can only do so much. They will have to create the environment where private sector, DFIs, and some of the long-term capital, such as the pension funds, find a way to really channel those monies into infrastructure. The pension funds are a major supporter of the NIDF. About 85 to 86% of the funds were from pension funds. So the pathway and the legislation around that, I mean, the guidelines have been established for pension funds to invest in this asset class. And we continue to, lead that arena. And again, once again, we hope other players come in and, create similar products to enable to finance infrastructure.
Sector, folks like investment banks like Chapel Hill, for example, yes, they sukuk bonds to fund some of the roads, but again, we still have so much gap there, not just in terms of roads and bridges, railways, including the power sector, and the government hasn't really done much, even including water and sanitation. Do you think we need more of these bonds from the government side, package them, bring them to the market, rather than using the annual budgetary cycle of allocations to fix this critical infrastructure that are decaying and the population is rising and consumption of this infrastructure is getting higher by the day?
You're right. I mean, so I totally, omitted Sukuks and government needs to borrow. I mean, using the capital markets to raise money to fund infrastructure.
Yes. So, what other infrastructure funds would you like to see come into the market?
Well, I mean, there's an equity portion of some of these projects that we evaluate. So an infrastructure, equity fund will also be very helpful. Project bonds, infrastructure bonds also, and again, there's a pathway, there's that guidelines around some of these industries, asset classes for investors to invest in. It's just for advisors and owners of long-term capital to find a way to channel those monies into these asset classes.
You guys are looking at any other specific debt fund other than infrastructure?
Right now, I mean, other asset classes in the real asset spaces that we're looking at. But in regards to infrastructure, the debt fund is what we're really focused on. Sometime in the near future, we might also look into doing infrastructure equity.
Oh, okay. That'll be a game changer. Just switching from the debt side to the equity side. Lanre Buluro, Director of Sales at Chapel Hill, Denham. Thank you very much for spending some of your time.